Parsha, if you remember, 2 days ago, was Parsha Vayeshev. And it's an extremely pivotal Parsha in the Torah, at least according to myself, and I guess other people, because it's the Parsha where Yosef's brothers throw him into a pit and then they sell him into slavery. And just a side note, people say, like, there's always a question at the Seder table, right? Why do we do karpas at that specific point in the Seder? And the answer that's given is karpas is, according to some rabbis, representative of the Shvatim dipping Yosef's coat into the blood of the animal. So we dip to signify the dipping of the coat. But specifically, we do it at the beginning of the Seder because it sets the tone for the whole Seder. It's the one act in the Torah that led us initially into Mitzrayim, into slavery, right? The brothers sold Yosef, and then eventually that's how they all ended up in Mitzrayim. So it's that one initial act of Sinat Chinam that led us into Mitzrayim, and that's why people say we do karpas at the beginning of the Seder. So if you take that approach, right, that whole idea that that's the one act of Sinat Chinam that led us into Mitzrayim, then you're taking the approach that the brothers, their act of dipping Yosef's coat and throwing him into the pit and selling him to slavery was a villainous act, that they're villains, they're horrible people, they did something terrible, and it led us into Mitzrayim, and that's how we got there. But I heard a nice idea that kind of portrays the Shvatim and the brothers in a different way, not in such a terrible light, more in a better light. Not that to say that they're angels, but just to say that they weren't as terrible and as villainous as people make them out to be. So the way that we're going to do that is as follows. We're going to look at the story a little differently, starting with why the brothers did what they did, right? People say they were jealous of Yosef, they were jealous of his relationship with Yaakov, right, their father, and he was, and that Yosef was a bragger. He said, like, talked about his dreams, and he was bragging always, and they were angry with him, and they decided to get rid of him. But there's another way to look at it, and it starts from going back a bit, right? The brothers had experience with fathers making not the best decisions, not the best judgment calls, right? First with their grandfather Abraham, the great-grandfather Abraham, who kind of had this relationship with Yishmael, right, his other son, and he was like kind of considering keeping him, whatever, and Sarah, his wife, had to kind of step in and say, we're not keeping Yishmael, Hagar and Yishmael have to leave, and she was kind of like that person who like drove them out of the house, and she made that decision, right? And then their grandfather, Yitzchak, also kind of had like this close relationship with Esav, right? He thought he was the better son, he deserved the bracha, right? And Rivka was like that wife, that woman figure who said, like, that's it, I'm shutting this down, and she, Lost likes that term, and she said to Yaakov, no, you have to get the bracha from your brother, you switch, do the whole trick for your father. So Rivka was like that person, right? But here they are with their father Yaakov, and he clearly shows signs of favoritism or loving Yosef more than the other brothers, and Yosef kind of, it seems as though with all these dreams he's going to be the leader. And the brothers are kind of thinking to themselves, like, maybe this isn't such a good idea. How do we know that Yaakov, our father, has a great judgment, right? How do we know he's making the best decision in choosing Yosef, the second youngest brother of all of us, as the leader? We need to stop it, right? Rachel, his mother, his wife, is not here, right? Yosef's mother, Yaakov's wife, is not here. She's not around anymore. There's nobody here to stop it. We have to stop it, right? So that could be the initial reason as to why they were anti-Yosef being the leader. They had experience in the past with people making not such good calls, and their wives or the woman figure stepping in and destroying it, but here there was nobody to do it. So they felt they had to take action. Okay, so that's reason number one. Then moves on to Yosef's actual dreams, right? He has this dream that there's 11 bundles of wheat, and they're going to bow down to him, the middle one, right? So aside from the whole idea of what that represents, take the simple concept of wheat, right? The brothers are thinking, we come from a family of shepherds, right? Our grandfather was a shepherd, our father's a shepherd, we're shepherds, that's what we do, right? Shepherds are on the go, they move. We're not farmers. Farmers sit, kind of, like they're not stationary, I think, right? They're stationary, right? They don't move. And we're not farmers. That's not who we are. So Yosef, all of a sudden, you're going to become this new leader and turn our whole family around and change us from shepherds to farmers. We don't want to do that, right? So that was the second thing, right? They weren't happy with his whole plan of leadership. So that was that, okay? So then, if you continue, so it talks about how the brothers leave, right? They go and they go to Shechem. Okay, so some people could say, right, they were like kind of running away and they were so angry at Yosef and all of this like terribleness. But if you look at it from the other perspective, right now they're kind of just confused. They don't really know what to do, right? Yosef, this brother of theirs, is showing signs that he's going to be the leader. They don't know like what they think about it. They need to take a walk and kind of figure it out. So they go to Shechem, okay? Why they go to Shechem, there's different opinions. Some people say they went to Shechem specifically to spite their father, Yaakov, who didn't love Shechem because of everything that happened with Dinah. But aside from the fact they go to Shechem, right? And they're sitting there, they want to talk it over, family meeting, discuss what's going to be. And then all of a sudden Yosef appears, right? And he comes in his royal garb, right? Already that's annoying them. They're not happy about it because who is he to be the leader? They're nervous about it. They're fearful that he's not the right person. And he comes, and out of like rash decision making, they just decide we got to get rid of him. Let's throw him in a pit, right? But that's not the original thing they say. The first thing they say is, I'm going to kill him. Let's kill him, right? That's their first original idea. And again, you can look at it from the sense like they're going to kill him, they're terrible. But on the other hand, they're fearful. They don't know what to do. They don't know what's going to be. Their first initial thought is, I'm going to kill you, right? Have you ever said to a sibling, I'm going to kill you if they do something right off the bat? That's what you think. I'm sure everyone in the room has. Everyone's laughing. I definitely had. So, right, we're going to kill him, right? But then they think, okay, let's be a little bit more rational. Let's sell him, right? But none of those things, they don't make a concrete decision in the Psukim. Nothing is clear. They don't decide anything. The only thing that decision is actually made is that they're going to just throw him in a pit to contain him, to just deal with him for now, right? But nobody decides on the spot, we're going to sell him, we're going to kill him. Those are just thoughts, you could say, meaning this is just one perspective. You could say they were just thinking, maybe we'll kill him, maybe we'll sell him, but for now, let's just throw him in a pit. So they throw him in the pit, okay? So now, okay, so going back to the idea that the brothers are terrible, if you take that approach, then really, if you read the Psukim, there's one part of the pasuk that makes the brothers out to be terrible, okay? So if we read the Psukim, it says, Vayehi kasher vayosef elacha v'yavshitu et Yosef ektunato ektonan hapasim asher alav, right? Yosef came, they stripped him of his coat. Then vayikachu vayashlichu oto habora v'habora reik ein bo mayim, okay, they throw him into this empty pit. And the last thing it says, v'yeshvu la'achol lachem v'yisu einehem v'yu v'hinei oracha ishmaelim ba'am yigilad u'kmalehem nosim necha tzri v'lot holchim v'loharidem yutrana. Okay, what do? They sit down, they have a meal, okay? So if you're going to say that these brothers were terrible, then this is the icing to the cake, because what type of people could throw their brother in a pit and then have a meal and sit down, right, and enjoy their meal? But if we're going to the perspective that I'm focusing on, that the brothers aren't so terrible, then really the whole thing makes sense chronologically, right? They were having this family meeting. Yosef comes, the person that they're all discussing. They need to figure out what to do with him, so they throw him in a pit, and then they have a meal to discuss, to further discuss their meeting, right? A meal signifies like an important discussion, and that's what they were doing. They were having this meal to discuss what to do. So fast forward, right? They find out that Yosef is sold, but not actually, meaning they think he's dead, right? They don't see him because they had no intention of actually killing him. So when Reuven comes to them and says Yosef's gone, they all assume he's dead, and like they're really in shock if you take this approach, right? They have no idea what happened to him. They had no intention of actually killing him. So now they have no idea what happened to him. He's dead in their eyes, and it makes total sense that 22 years later, when they're in Mitzrayim, right, and they see Yosef for the first time, the pasuk describes. It says, here it says okay, I don't know where it is, but basically it says that they didn't recognize him. Oh, I do know. Okay, it says, Vayaker Yosef elacha v'him lo hikiru. They had no idea who he was, right? It's impossible for people not to be able to recognize a sibling, even 22 years later, unless they truly believe their sibling was dead. And that's really what they did. If we go according to the idea that they had no intention of killing him, and now they think he's dead, they really truly believed he was dead, and that's why they didn't recognize him so many years later. So again, there's a lot of different points you could look into, whether they were villainous, whether they weren't. But the point is that I'm not trying to make that they were angels, that they were great people, like I said earlier. I do believe that they did something wrong, right? Throwing their brother in a pit, regardless of the fact whether they were intending to kill him or intending to sell him or intending not, whatever, is a terrible act. But I think it's important that we look at the whole story from like a more humanistic type of way, right? Because at the end of the day, they were humans, right? The Avot, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they were humans. The Shvatim, they were people. Like they all were people. They all had challenges, just like people today have challenges, and they had to deal with them. And so if you're going to take the approach that they were terrible people, then go for it. Some people do. But if you want to take the other approach that the Shvatim just needed to deal with this situation, right? Their brother was going to be this leader. They didn't know what was going to be. They didn't have Rachel to kind of step in. I mean, obviously they had Leah and Bilhah and Zilpah, but it doesn't matter. Like Rachel was Yosef's mother. So in their eyes, she wasn't here to fix it, and they had to step up and do something about it. And I just think it's important to like look at this story from a more kind of humanistic way, because it's easier for us to relate, right? We all as people have challenges and issues in life, and I think it's very quick for us to paint all situations like black or white, right? They're terrible, they're great, they're villainous or they're heroic, whatever. Either way, I think there's different parts to each story, but I think it's important to look at all the parts. So yeah.